I want to start off with a couple questions this morning. Why is the word abbreviated such a long word? Well, it gets better from here, right? Why is a boxing ring square? Why doesn't glue stick to the inside of the bottle that it's in? Why don't you ever see the headline, "Psychic wins the lottery"? Why is the person who invests all your money called a broker? Why is the time of day with the slowest traffic referred to as rush hour? And why isn't the word phonetics spelled phonetically? And why do we drive on a parkway and park on a driveway? All these questions begin with the word why. And they all make us rethink something we didn't give much thought to before. And as Jews, I gotta say, we're used to that word why. We dig into our tradition, we're curious of the origins of this or that thing, and the meaning of what it is that we do. Passover starts with a why. It's asked by our youngest. Why is this night different from all other nights? Asking why is how we challenge and revolutionize. It's how we pioneer frontiers and how we blaze new trails. Abraham rejected idolatry, and it's seen in rabbinic lore as coming from his standing up to his own family and questioning the prevailing practices of what everyone else was doing at his time. Why do you worship many gods? Was the question that he asked. No one was laughing. And his answer, that there's only one God, remains at the heart of our tradition nearly 4 millennia later. And think again about Moses. Moses will find himself standing in front of a burning bush that is never consumed, and he begins with a why question. Why is this bush that I'm standing next to not completely burnt? And then he winds up transforming our people, providing a model for freedom, which has inspired the oppressed ever since. Now in Hebrew, there's 2 words for why, lama and madua. And those words appear in our Bible over 240 times. Walk the streets of Israel, you'll hear those words a lot. Yet there are times that the question why should be asked, but we just don't ask it. Take the story from this morning's Torah reading. It's a perfect example of it. God tests Abraham. And it's troubling that in this test, God commands Abraham to take Isaac to the top of a mountain, sacrifice him there, that there's no resistance. Of all places, we would expect to hear the why question here. But Abraham doesn't ask it. Neither does Isaac. An organizational consultant, his name is Simon Sinek, and he wrote a book about 10 years ago called Start With Why. And his accompanying 18-minute TED Talk went viral. He asked why, but not about the Torah. Rather, he wondered why Apple computers and phones have attracted their loyal following. Why did the Wright brothers make a successful flying machine while others who tried didn't? And why did people following Martin Luther King and not any other orator who spoke of suffering in the pre-civil rights era, why did they do that? The difference, Sinek notes, is that they and others like them made why their primary question. Everyone can tell you what they do, and some can even tell you how they do it. But why? That's a different question. Rarely does the question why receive any attention. That is until we arrive at Rosh Hashanah. This day represents a new start for us every year. It's an invitation for us to do what that book says, to start with the whys in our life and to examine the core of who we are. And so in preparation for this year's high holidays, as I've been asking my own whys, I'm sure that you have also, I began to think about this question. Why Temple Emanuel? Why Temple Emanuel? Not for me, but why Temple Emanuel for all of us? Well, let me tell you what I did. I reached out to 10 people, to a minion here, and I asked them the following question. Why Temple Emanuel? And I was hoping that they would speak about what attracts them to our community, why they hang out here, why they joined our temple. This wasn't a scientific study, not by any means, but I made it a point to speak with people from different backgrounds. I asked this question both to men and women, to those who are from Greensboro, even to those who have been here for generations and generations, even since our congregation start, and I also talked to relative newcomers. I spoke with kids who were in grade school, high school, as well as parents and grandparents. Some are on Temple's board of trustee and others aren't. Some were born into Jewish families, others weren't. You're probably wondering right now who it was that I talked to. They may in fact tell you. But that I could do this in a minion with 10 people tells you something about the diversity of this place that we call home. And it didn't take long for a few commonalities, contours, to emerge. And that's what I want to share with you this morning. Why Temple Emanuel? Your words. Top 4 things. First, we're a welcoming community. People kept referring to Temple Emanuel as their home away from home. And for some, Temple was and remains a safe haven, a sanctuary where they can be themselves. They don't have to explain themselves as Jewish people as they might have to do at work or in other settings. But others took it a step further. I heard comments such as, "We've built more friendships through Temple Emanuel than any other place that we have lived." It's pretty powerful. And hearing that made me think of Abraham and Sarah, how they left the door to their tent open to receive all, to show them hospitality, and how they treated everybody as if they were family. A welcoming community does that. The Jewish value is what we call hachnasat orchim, and it's central to this community. But there's more to this, because these days being welcoming is only a first step. And the people that I spoke with said that Temple Emanuel takes a next step, which is not only appreciated, but which is also very holy and reflective of our deep beliefs. Temple Emanuel is a community that embraces those who have at other times been left out. Now, this is not something new for the Reform movement. Our commitment to equality goes back generations, beginning with breakthroughs for women and emanating from there. It informs our approach to everything we do off the bima as well as on it. We have been leaders in LGBTQ equality. The people that I spoke with were proud of how we have validated, blessed, and amplified this message. That no matter your sexual orientation or your gender identification, you are holy and you belong. So what else did I hear? I heard that we're a haven for families with children who are differently abled, doing everything possible to make sure that no Jewish child, even when they reach adulthood, is ever left behind. Moreover, our community reflects a larger diversity, spanning Jews of color, Jews of Asian, Hispanic origins, Jews from other continents, Jews whose first language isn't English or Hebrew. The people I spoke with loved how we affirmed those who grew up outside of the Jewish tradition, but who have become Jews by choice, and they appreciated how we do not shun those whose life partners or family members are not Jewish. In fact, we as a community are so grateful to those who have chosen to support their Jewish partner, to raise their kids Jewish, and to cast their lot with the Jewish people, even if they themselves do not choose Judaism as their own formal path. Even our temple building, which is arced, sends this message. Our building is shaped like a big hug. Form and function really do weave together, literally shaping our message and our mission as a welcoming Jewish community. Come on in. All are welcome here. Theme number 1, welcoming. Theme number 2 that emerged from asking why Temple Emanuel is that we're a community that goes beyond activities or programs. We are a community of meaning. When people are looking to celebrate, they turn to Temple. When people are hurting or in need of healing, the same is true. When they want to learn more, to explore the Jewish tradition as well as important contemporary issues, Temple is there. Our Shabbat morning Torah study group, Chevra Torah, was mentioned often when I spoke with people. Every week we gather in a packed room to interact with our tradition, to examine the weekly Torah portion, and to talk about its application to our lives and the world that we live in. Shabbat mornings at 9 o'clock have become another holy time in this community. Temple's adult classes during the week are serious and engaging, and here I want to again mention something that we pointed out last night, that starting later this month, we are relaunching the Melton curriculum here at Temple. Now you're going to get a book of the New Year today. It's advertised in there. I hope that you consider taking this class. It runs throughout the course of this year, and it goes into not only the whats, not only the hows, but the whys of Jewish thought and Jewish practice. But it wasn't only adult learning that was mentioned as a source of meaning. What we do with high school students through the end of 12th grade, retaining over 80% of our youth through the end of high school, has created a culture of meaningful engagement that our youth and their families value. And people cannot say enough in praise of our early childhood engagement center, which now, as you heard today, has well over 30, almost 40 pre-kindergarten students and continues to grow, a community of meaning. So when people talk about this second why of Temple Emanuel, they talked about learning, but again, they took it a step further. Temple, they say, is a place where Judaism and spirituality meet. The word that they used most often was ruach. People talked about a positive, encouraging energy. The Temple is a place where Judaism is uplifting, celebratory, and meaningful. Our services, especially our music, were mentioned as being particularly special. Religion, as we know here in the South, is very, very important. The South is a place where God talk and religion are not frowned upon. We live up to our namesake, Emmanuel in Hebrew. It means God is with us. We do everything possible to live up to that sacred responsibility. The question why Temple Emanuel was also answered a third way. That we are a leading voice for justice and tikkun olam, repairing our world. Name the issue: civil rights, addressing needs of the poor, the hungry, and the homeless, gun violence, women's rights, voting rights, care for our planet, education, LGBTQ equality, and immigration. The list could go on and on. We are not newcomers to these issues. The Reform movement has a long history of advocacy and volunteer efforts dating back to the early part of last century. Nor are we silent on these issues. Our activism locally, on the statewide level, in the halls of Congress, as you heard Ron say earlier, is directly connected to central values rooted in Torah and the Jewish experience. In doing these things, we live up to the teaching of Hillel from antiquity: if I am only for myself, then who am I? But before Hillel said that, he also taught, if I'm not for myself, then who will be for me? And this why of Temple Emanuel is one that we might not have seen coming a few decades ago. And it's the need to counter anti-Semitism and to stand up for our own people. It's the voice of pro-Israel advocacy, even as we might wrestle with some of Israel's positions that impact Reform Jews and minorities there. We're a congregation that loves Israel. Most of our youth will spend time in Israel with us during their high school years. We've taken adult trips to Israel. We're leading a clergy trip to Israel at the beginning of next year. You saw the amount of people that were standing up here, and that number continues to grow and grow. And friends, we are a voice for Israel at a time when it is truly needed. The third why. The third why is our voices. But there's a fourth why. And that's that Temple Emanuel is a place, a community that gives back. On the one hand, I heard an appreciation for our temple staff, including the work that we, your rabbis, do. And I say this, friends, with tremendous humility. But this temple is much more than our staff. How do we do the things that we do? How do we do things like the Jewish festival, the activities of our brotherhood and sisterhood, meals and classes, music and drama, the compelling stories, updates and pictures on social media, the timely communications, our well-kept cemetery showing chesed by helping out when times are tough, social action activities, and the list could go on and on. How do we do this? You. That's how we do it. Here's one way that was expressed to me. Temple gave me so much when I first arrived here, but now as a leader, I'm now in a position to give back and to use my talents in the community. And that happens over and over again. So why Temple Emanuel? Altogether, my recent conversations netted the following. We want to feel connected to and embraced by others. We want to have deep Jewish conversations and moments of connecting to God and the spiritual aspects of life. We want to change the world, or at least keep the world from changing us. And we want to give back. And I should also say that we may want or need these different elements of our temple's why more or less intensely at different points or stages in our lives. And so plugging into one might mean something different at a different time. You know, educators tell us that preschool students ask their parents a minimum of 100 questions a day. But as we get older, this instinct greatly diminishes. And the question for that is, why? Maybe it's because schools reward correct answers rather than questions. But I'll tell you this, we're a 111-year-old congregation. Today is our 111th anniversary. But we should never, ever stop asking questions. So as you came in today, maybe last night, you may have noticed that there's a bulletin board here at Temple in our lobby. And on that bulletin board, there are 3 big words. Why Temple Emanuel? As I told you, I only spoke with a minion. But we are much larger than that. So as this new year begins, I hope that we'll keep this conversation going. I'm asking you, I'm hoping that you're going to stop by that bulletin board. It's meant to be interactive. I hope that you'll fill out one of the cards, one of the sheets of paper there, and share your take on that question, why Temple Emanuel, by tacking what you write for all to see. And if you want to, not only here in our lobby, you're also welcome to post up your take on why Temple Emanuel on social media and share it with our community and with those around the world. By doing this, I really feel that we will be writing our own entry, our own story, our own answer, our tshuva in the book of life. And I also pray that in the coming 10 days between now and Yom Kippur, not only will we share our thoughts on what this temple means to us, but I also hope that we will read what others have written, listen to what others are saying, and share how we can continue to grow as a Kihila Kedosha, a holy community. May this year be filled with God's blessings for all that is good for each of us. May we be safe, healthy, and kind. May our pursuits meet with success. And may we be guided by questions that help us become all that God has meant us to be. L'shana tova tikatevu. May our answers, the ones that we write down and the ones that are in our hearts, lift us up. May our questions be prayers, and may we be inscribed for goodness in the book of life. And together let's all say, Amen.